Hello and welcome to another N.devine83 pre-recorded tutorial. Today we're going to look at and show you how to build a hybrid coil. We're going to look at the simplest form just to get you started. If you've never done a hybrid coil, this will get you started on it, and if you have done a hybrid coil, this will kind of show you how you could move on from there and do more complicated hybrid coils. So like I said, this will be the simplest version, probably the most common version when this coil first came out. This coil's original concept came from a guy by the name of Gauch on Instagram. With this coil, I'm going to be using two pieces of 24 gauges, the cores, but you could use any cores. In a hybrid coil, the cores are somewhat important because that's what the current travels through. The current travels through the cores, and what makes this coil look different in the different wraps is that the wire that you use the Clapton over is going to be different in different parts of the coil. So a hybrid coil is basically just that. It's two coils mixed together inside of one coil. It's very important to learn how to wrap these, learn the measurements so that it looks as though it's all one piece. With this coil, there's endless possibilities with this coil. I mean, there's so many coils out there, and you could take two different types and mix them together. You could take 3 or 4 different types as you go along with your hybrid coils and getting better and better at them. Today we're just going to do 2 different types. What we're going to do is we're going to do a basic fused Clapton, and we're going to do a Clapton with ribbon in the middle. So with the hybrid coil, it's very important to know what your inside diameter that you're going to be wrapping around. So whatever bit you're going to be using to wrap your coil, it's important to know that before you get started. We're going to be using a 3mm. These coils vibrate depending on what the cores are and what the outsides are. It's just like any other coil. If you were to do a Suka over it, it's not going to vape as well as, let's say, if you put an Alien over it. The difficulty level of this coil is somewhere between beginner and intermediate. It's not that hard. If you could do a fused Clapton, you could do this. But you also need to know how to use a tape measure or a ruler. You need to know your measurements. If you know your measurements, you know how to do a fused Clapton, you could do this very coil that I'm doing today. Very easy. Other than that, I'm just going to dive down and start this. So the way this video is going to go is after the intro is finished, I'm going to go down to a couple drawings I did to help explain the coil and how we're going to get it done. Then I'm going to show you the tools needed. Then we're going to do the build, and then we're going to wrap the build up and install it. I'll show you the ohms, talk a little bit about it, and then get out of here. Alright, so here we go. Hybrid coil. Enjoy. Let's do it. Alright, so like I said in the intro, we're going to be using 2 pieces of 24 gauge for the cores. Alright, the cores are what the current's going to travel through. Current travels through the cores. So whatever we put on the outside, as long as it's tight to these cores, will be fine. I think a lot of people get scared with hybrid coils when they see them, and they wonder, well, where's all this attached to? How's the ribbon attached to the 38? As long as it's attached to the cores, everything's going to be fine. Alright, current travels through the cores because current takes the path of least resistance. Alright, so then we're going to have our 24 gauge cores, and what we're going to do is we're going to fuse Clapton the 24 gauge cores with 38, and then in the middle we're going to have 0.3 by 0.1 ribbon in the middle for 2 wraps. Alright, each of these wraps is going to equal about a ½ an inch. So 2 wraps equals an inch. Let me show you what the coil is going to look like when it's finished. So here's the coil when it's finished here. Let's not pay attention too much of that. Let's pay attention to this. Here's the ribbon wraps. We're going to have 2 ribbon wraps in the middle. and then two 38 gauge fuse Claptons on either side. So we have 6 wraps. Alright? So what's very important with a hybrid coil is knowing the measurement of each wrap. How long until it gets around that bit. And like I said, before you do your hybrid coil, you want to know what bit you're going to be wrapping around. So we're going to be wrapping around a 3mm bit. All wraps around a 3mm bit are a 1/2 inch, a little light, which I mean is it's a little bit shorter than a 1/2 inch, a very, very little bit shorter. I'm going to have a ruler, and I'm going to show you where an inch is out on my ruler. I'm going to put a piece of tape on my ruler so you could see how much smaller than a 1/2 inch each of these wraps got to be. If you're doing a 2.5 inside diameter, it's 7/16 per wrap. Alright, so it's a little bit lighter than the 3mm. Alright, so 2 wraps, since we're doing a lot of 2 wraps here, 2 wraps around a 3mm is 1 inch, very light. So if 1 wrap is a 1/2 inch, 2 wraps are 1 inch. Alright, and around a 2.5, they're 7/8 for 2 wraps. But we're worrying about the 3mm. So back up here. Each of these wraps are a little bit less than a 1/2 inch. Alright, we're going to be doing 2 wraps of ribbon, 2 wraps of 38 on either side. So our stick's kind of going to look like this. We got to do a little under an inch of 38 plus the leads. Alright, but we got to make sure that we have at least an inch of 38. And then we're going to have a little bit less than an inch of the ribbon Clapton. And then again, we're going to have the rest of the wire 38. Alright, so we need at least an inch, but then we have the leads. We could do all the leads in 38 as well. So basically our whole stick's going to be 38 gauge fuse Clapton, except for in the middle, for 1 inch, we're going to have it ribbon Claptoned. Alright, so we're going to get to the build. We're going to do this same exact wire here. And we're going to cover this up with 38 just like the rest. And I'm just going to start off with a single coil. And then I'm going to show you the dual coil as well. And I'm going to show you a little trick I like to use when doing these hybrids when we get to the second coil. Alright, so let's get to the build. Alright, so here's all the tools and the wires I'm going to be using for this build. Starting off with the wire, I'm using 24 gauge nichrome for the cores. I'm using all Coil Society wire today. I'm using 38 gauge nichrome for the fuse Clapton. I'm using 0.3 Kanthal ribbon 3x1 for the inside fuse Clapton. Alright, and of course I always use my needle noses and close cutters. I use, in this build, my nylon pliers from Beadalon. These are Crescent tools, Crescent close cutters, and Crescent needle noses. These actually come in a set of 2 for about $14 at Home Depot. I'm going to be using my Coil Master ceramic tweezers. I'm going to be using my Coil Master Coil Jig 3mm bit. If you want to alternate and use a 2.5, you can do that, but you do have to change the measurements, which I do go over in this video. I'm going to be using a couple mini clothes pins. Alright, I got these at the dollar store. They come in about a 50 pack for $1. I'm going to be using my swivel setup, of course. This is just a small piece of it, but I do use swivels with this. Not absolutely necessary if you have other ways to do it. Besides swivels, you could do that. Alright, I'm definitely going to be using a drill. Alright, just a 3/8 or 1/2 inch chuck drill that opens and closes. Nothing too fancy. And so I could see some stuff. I was using a macro lens, but you could also use a magnifying glass or magnifying goggles, whatever. I'm using two types of rollers here. The one I use the most is this foot roller. I put tape on it, and I explain that later in the video. But I use this little foot roller, and to cut some wire and get it prepped, I used my tape measure. Not absolutely necessary. This is an absolute must. Alright. And then I use, to flatten my build out later, I use a jeweler's block. And I use a clone stainless steel mech mod to roll out my build and get it looking nice and pretty. And then I also use a DNA, something safe to pulse my coils on. When I'm finished, I installed my coils in this video in the Dead Rabbit Heat Treated 24. Those are the coils we do in this very video. As you can see, I'm smart. I did all the tools after the video, so I made sure I remembered everything. And I have a flathead to use to tighten up this build. And that is it for what we will be using. Let's get onto the build. Alright, so first things first, we're going to get our 24 gauge nichrome, and we're going to get our cores ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape measure. I'm going to get it out. Place it on my table. I'm going to get my 24 gauge. I'm going to get my needle noses. And I'm going to take this 24 gauge and I'm going to get 16 inches of this 24 gauge and cut it off the spool. 16 inches. I'm going to go a little heavy. I'm going to pinch it on the spool so it stays. Get my close cutters and give it a little cut. Alright. Now we're going to straighten this wire out real quick. So I'm going to get my drill. I'm going to take the 24. It already has a little 90 in it. I'm going to put it in my drill chuck. Tighten. Get the other end with my needle noses. Pull and twist. Now it's straight, and I can cut it from my drill. And now I have a little more than 16 inches of 24 gauge. Now what I want to do is I want to take this end of the 24 gauge and this end of the 24 gauge in each hand, bring them together, go up here at the loop, try to get the most center, and pull. And then I want to bend this in half. Now I'm going to get my swivel, put my swivel hook through, close up the swivel, might as well. And I'm going to bend this 24 around the swivel pretty tight. This 24, you want to get it pretty tight around that swivel. It's just going to make things a little easier down the road. So I just give it a little pinch so it's around that swivel nice and neat. Alright. Now I'm going to run my fingers down the two pieces of 24. I'm going to come down the end here. I'm going to take one of the pieces of 24 and I'm going to bend it left. This one I'm going to bend right, so I have two 90s. I'm going to open my drill back up and insert the 24 gauge 90s into the drill so that they each have a tooth gap. And that's going to grab my 24. Now I can set up my swivel so that it's even with my drill when it's standing up. Alright. Let's start doing our fuse clapping now. Alright, so this is how I set up my ruler. Basically, I took a piece of masking tape and I put it on the 11-inch mark and the 10-inch mark. So it's an inch between tape and tape. And I'm going to be using this through the tutorial. I just wanted to show you. So when I go and do 2 wraps, it's going to fall a little short of an inch. So I wanted to put the tape here so you could kind of see a little bit better where an inch actually is and where my hybrid 2 wraps are going to land. Alright, so also what I wanted to go over is, so we're going to have an inch for 2 wraps, an inch for 2 wraps, an inch for 2 wraps, but we also have to think about the leads. All I need to leave in there is like a ½ an inch for the leads. Alright, we're going to have 2 wraps in the middle that are an inch. And then on either side, we're going to have an inch of fuse clapton, and then an extra ½ inch for the leads. So that's an inch and a half on either side. So it's going to go inch and a half, fuse clapton, inch, ribbon clapton, inch and a half, fuse clapton. And that adds up to be 4 inches. Alright, 4 inches are what I usually make my coils to wrap up and get a decent 5 or 6 wrap. So that's how I'm going to be doing the math for this, and here we go. Alright, so like I said, with the 2 first wraps of this 38 gauge fuse clapton, between that and the leads, I'm going to want to do an inch and a half first of fuse clapton with this 38 gauge. So what I like to do is I'm going to take this 38 gauge, I'm going to open up the 24 gauge a bit, and stick the 38 in between the 24 gauge. I'm going to grab that and bring it down to the end of the drill. I'm going to put my drill in clockwise. That doesn't matter, it's just what I prefer. And I'm going to start wrapping the 38 around the 24 gauge, just making a fuse clapton. I'm going to check where I'm at with my ruler. I want an inch and a half. So far I have a little over an inch. Let me check it again. And there's a little over an inch and a half. Perfect. Alright. So now I'm going to cut this 38 as flush as I can with the best flush cutters I have. So actually, let me get my other ones. I'm going to take the 38 and I'm going to pull a little bit away from the 24 gauge cores. I'm going to take my close cutters and I'm going to push them against the wire, the 24 gauge. I'm going to pull the 38 and cut as I pull. So you should get a nice clean cut, nothing hanging off. Alright, if there is a little sticking up, there is a little bit here sticking up on mine. You could take your needle noses and just give it a little press down. You could also use nylons, that's fine. Now, I'm going to get my 3mm by 1mm ribbon. I'm going to use Canthal here. I like using these little clips to keep my ribbon on the spool without having to go all the way over to the notch and mess some up. So now I'm going to get my 0.3 ribbon. I'm going to take it and I'm going to wrap clockwise around the 38 gauge, right where it stopped. That's where it stopped, and I'm going to clockwise back wrap it towards the drill a little bit. Just going to do about 4 or 5 wraps. I did go right over the 38. If you feel like that's still not going to stay, you could take something like a clip to hold it on there. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take one of my little clips, hold the ribbon on there. I'm going to reverse real quick, because I seen a piece of 38 sticking up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip that 38 again. And now I'm going to ribbon tightly. I'm even going over the 38 a little bit. I'm pulling it tight so it's nice and tight to them cores, nice and tight to the 38. And I'm going to clap in with this ribbon for a little under an inch. Not counting what I back wrapped with my hand. Nice tight wraps. I'm going to measure it and see where I'm at. I still got a ways to go. I want to reach that tape right here. I want the tape to the tape touching the ribbon, so I still got a little bit to go. Let's measure it again. Almost there. Tad bit more. Like I said, I want a little light of an inch. I'm going to do one more wrap, or 2 more rotations, and that's it. I'm going to take this clip off, and let me just show you what I have here. So I'm going to put my ruler right on top of where my ribbon started, and then right here, and you can see how short of an inch I do it. Very short. From tape to tape is an inch. Very short of an inch. I just hit that first line there. Alright, so now I'm going to do the same thing with this ribbon. I'm going to pull the ribbon towards me, put my close cutters against the 24 gauge, and cut it. Take the ribbon, pull it towards me, close cutters against the 24, and cut it as close as I can. Then I'm definitely going to take my needle noses and pinch that in. It sticks up a little bit, push it back down, Nice and tight there. Now I need to do this right here. I gotta undo what I did to get started and cut that close. Now when I cut that close, I want to cut it on the same side that I just cut this one. Alright. So let me turn this around so you can see. You see this side, you don't see the cut. This side, you see the cut. I want to cut this one on that same side. I want the cuts to be on the same side. I'll explain why later. But basically, we're going to wrap them on the inside. Alright, so I'm going to face this towards me, so I can cut both of them towards me. I'm going to grab the 38 with my needle noses, put my drill in the clockwise, unwrap this slowly. One more time. That's how I want it. Now I'm going to pull. Push my close cutters towards the 24, pull the 0.3, cut, and clean it up a little bit. Pinch it up and down, and then pinch it on the sides. I'm not a fan of that cut, so what I'm going to do, luckily I left an extra wrap on there. I'm going to unwrap it. One rotation, or almost one rotation. And I'm going to cut it again. Just because I didn't really like how that happened. Cut. And now if you have little stuff poking up, don't worry too much about it. We will get it. Alright. All this right here will be hidden, but you still want to keep it as clean looking as possible. So let me rotate this so you could see my seams. There's my one seam. It could probably afford to be cut even a tad more, but that's fine. There's my one seam, and then on the same side, there's my other seam. Alright, let's do the last piece of 38. So I'm going to take my 38 gauge spool, and I'm going to do the same thing I just did to the ribbon. I'm going to hand wrap my 38 back to the drill, clockwise. I'm going to take the 38 and just with my hand, I'm going to back wrap it towards the drill over the ribbon. Just to get it secured on there for now, I'm going to take my clip and clip it over that 38 so that also holds it. Alright. And now I can start fusing. I'm going to get to the end of this ribbon. And before I hit the very end, I'm going to start clapping in nice and tight. I want to do this once again for 1.5 inches. And at the end, I'm going to have a 4-inch coil. Let's measure. So I want 1.5 inches from the end of the ribbon, and I have to do about 2 more rotations to get exactly 1.5 inches. That's it. That's my one coil right there. I'm going to leave this 38 attached for right now because we're going to go on to a second coil. Alright, so first I'm going to take this clothespin off. I'm going to grab the 38 with my needle noses and unwrap this 38 here. And I'm just going to keep unwrapping this 38 until it's at the place I want to cut it. And I'm going to cut it just like I cut all the rest. I'm going to pull it tight, push my close cutters into the wire, and give it a cut. So there it is. Pull it away from the wire, push my close cutters against the 24 and cut. It's now off. Now that both the wires are on there, I'm going to take my nylon pliers and give it a little crimp. And I'm going to go down to the first one, the first seam, and also give that a little crimp too. And I see it's still a little messy, so I am going to take that ribbon, pick it up a little bit, and cut a little more off so that that seam's more in the middle of the 2 pieces of 24 gauge on this side. And I'm a lot happier with that now. Alright. So that's our entire run. There's the drill chuck, 1.5 inches of 38 gauge, just like the picture, 1 inch of ribbon, and then another 1.5 inches of 38 gauge. And that would be our one coil. We'd be able to do our 6 wrap out of that. But I left this 38 on because now I'm going to go on to my second coil. And I'm going to show you a little trick I like to use to make these even a little more quicker. Alright, so we're in the beginning of our second coil. This is the end of our first coil. I'm going to mark it by putting one of my clips right there. So that signifies that that's where the first coil ends. Alright, and you don't really need to do this. It's just going to make it easier for me to explain it to you if I do this. Now, I'm going to do my 38 gauge for 1.5 inches again. The inch for the 2 wraps and the 1/2 inch for the leads that we were talking about. Let me measure it. I have almost 1 inch, so I need to go a little bit more than a 1/2 inch still. A little more. And I'm there. Alright. So now what I'm going to do. So obviously when I'm doing that fuse clapped in, 1 second, vape break. obviously when I'm doing that fuse clap, then I'm putting a lot of tension on my spool. I'm going to let go of that tension right now. And I'm going to let this wire kind of loop up and loosely go around that. I want to be able to basically take my close cutters when I'm doing this part and cut right there when I'm finished. So now that I have a little loop sticking up, I could twist this wire around for almost an inch. Just a space clapping. You don't need to do a lot on there. Alright. Once I get close to an inch, I don't even have to go an inch. I can go less than an inch because I could always take it off. I'm going to be doing that anyway. Once I get close to an inch, I could start doing my fuse clapped and nice and tight again. So I'm close to an inch. So tight fuse clapped in the rest of the way. I could take this the whole way because the rest is just lead. I'm at the end, so I can cut this clean. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my close cutters. I'm going to go in here and cut this 38 free where I left it a little spaced. Alright, so here I am. I'm going to get my close cutters. I'm kind of going to get right here onto that 38 and cut. Alright, now I can take my needle noses, grab that 38, put my drill in the clockwise rotation, and undo that 38. I'm going to go back to the first 38, right here, and I'm going to grab that one with my needle noses, put my drill in reverse since I'm going backwards on it, and take out a wrap. I'm going to pull the 38 away, get my close cutters in there, push my close cutters to the 24, pull tight and cut. Give that a little crimp to make it a little cleaner, and my ribbon should hide the rest. Now I can come down here. I'm going to take my ruler and measure tape to tape and see how much further I got to go for an inch. So I still got a ways to go to get to that little under an inch. Let's check it again. Check it again. A little more to go. Check it. And I still have a little bit. Check. And a little more. pull it away from the wire, push my close cutters to the 24, pull and cut as clean as I can. This guy's sticking up right here, so I'm going to cut that a little cleaner. Alright, let's put the ribbon on this now. Alright, so this is pretty much the same as the first time. I'm going to take my 0.3 Canthal ribbon, and in a clockwise motion, I'm going to wrap it back towards the drill. Get my little close clip, get it on there to hold it, and let's go in to that naked wire and start making it tight and fuse right over. Now the inch is already marked because it's just where the 38 stops. Now I'm where I need to be with my 0.3. Pull away from the wire, put my close cutters against the 24. Look at it so it's going to fall in the middle of my 24 pieces and cut. And then I can crimp it down. Make sure everything's nice and tight. Everything looks nice. If there's anything sticking up and it looks like it needs to be cut, do so. I'm going to go back to the first one. Pull. Undo the 0.3 where I hand wrapped it. Get it on the same side as I made the cut on this one. Pull it tight. Close cutters against the 24 and cut. Crimp it down. Crimp the sides to make sure it's tight also. And crimp down. Alright, ain't nothing to it but to make it look a little more pretty and wrap them up. Let me show you a close-up of what this looks like, show you a little extra step I do to make it look a little flatter, get them seams together a little better, and we'll move on from there. Alright, here's my wire cut right from the drill and the swivel. There's the 38 gauge fuse clapped in, and that at 1.5 inches. Here comes the ribbon. There's the transition. Here's the other transition. Go down to 4 inches where the first one stops, and then 5 inch, 5.5, that's where the ribbon starts again. There's the first transition. second transition, and the rest is fuse clamping. Let me show you another step I like to do to make these look a little cleaner. So now maybe you have a pasta roller or a jeweler's hammer and a jeweler's block. I like to use a clone stainless steel mod in my jeweler's block. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll over this wire. It's going to get it looking a little cleaner, and it's actually going to push them transition spots down, get them nice and tight. This isn't an absolute must. It's just something I like to do to make it look a little nicer and to get them transitions more like one piece. Alright, so that's all rolled out, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in between both these coils. I'm going to measure. I should have 3 inches in between the two coils where there's fuse clamped, and I do, so at 1.5 inches. I'm going to cut it, and that'll give me my 2 coils. So there are my 2 hybrid wires. Let's take another look at them close up. There's the fuse clamped in, of course. Here's my transitions. I'm showing both seams here. Let me flip the one over. Alright, there it is without the seam. We come down the ribbon. There it is again, one with the seam, one without on the ribbon. And of course the rest is fuse clamped in. Now when we wrap these, we want that seam. You see the one on the left has the ribbon seam. The other one you can't see the ribbon seam. We want that seam touching our drill bit when we wrap, or our coil master, coil jig, or whatever we're wrapping around our 3mm. That seam we want facing down. We want the nice stuff facing up. Alright. So let's wrap these coils. I'll show you how you line them up. So they look like all one piece and nobody knows. So here's my 3mm bit. Now, as long as you did the measurements, there's nothing to wrap in these. It's very easy, and then you look for the seam and hide it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these wires. We're going to find the seam that I was just talking about that needs to be facing down. Alright. And I found it. The seams are on this side. So I want this side facing down. So I'm going to take my wire. I'm going to bring it up a bit here. I'm going to leave about 1/2 inch lower than the bit. Maybe a little more if anything. And I'm going to start wrapping my coil. Alright, and just wrap it. Don't worry about where it's falling just yet. We'll worry about that after we do our 6 wraps. Alright, so we have about 5 wrap. And there's 6 wrap. Alright. So now I want to look for my seams. Now sometimes when you wrap these, you get these little pieces poking up or whatever have you. You could either take something like your needle noses and press them down. You could also, if it's like a piece of 38 sticking up, you could also cut it. But usually I'm able to just press them down like that and they go and lock right back in. So after I'm done that, I want to turn around my coil. And I want to see where my seams landed. And if you did your measurement properly, they should land in the same spot. Both seams are right there. I want them seams to be on the back bottom of my coil. You see how they're lined up straight across right there? One's here and one's here. One's not here and one's down here. One's here and here. Alright. I want that to be on the back bottom when I install. So I'm going to take it, imagine that it's in an RDA, and put it on the back bottom. Alright, back bottom. Back bottom. I'm going to look at my 2 wraps. I could take this one out a bit. Alright. So I'm going to grab that. And I'm going to unwrap that a little bit. Check my seams again. And the back bottom. And now I do always like to bend my leads on my hybrids. So I'm going to just keep checking. Back bottom, back bottom. Get my leads straightened out. Alright. So this lead's right. I can look at the coil dead on. I can look at it from the top. I see no seams. And then I turn it around to the bottom, back, and it's out there. So now I have my L. And now I could take it and bend it up so they're on the same plane, and that'll assure that they're always on the back bottom. This is the bottom of the coil. That's the front. There's the top. Even if you look in the back, you can hardly even see it. But if you look on the bottom, that's where you see it. So you just want to hide them. And that's what you want to do. Let's do it again. I'm going to take the wire. I'm going to find that seam where I made my cuts. There they are right there. So I'm going to flip it over so that's facing the drill bit. Make sure there's a 1/2 inch or more sticking down here. And start wrapping. Alright. And we want to make sure that we get 6 wraps and work from there. So I have my 6 wraps. I'm going to look at my seam, see what's going on. There is something sticking up here. I'm going to take my needle noses, press it down. If anything needs to be cut, cut it. I'm not sure, but I think I do see a little piece of 38 I could cut there. Yep. And there you go. Now I can look at my coil. It's in the back, not quite the bottom yet. It's just in the back. So I want to place it on the back bottom. Bring that lead up. Check it again. It's in the back. A little more to the bottom, so bring that lead up. Check it again. Back bottom. Make my L. I'm sorry, back bottom. This lead's good. Let me just bend this one up. And check it again. Back bottom, back bottom. If you didn't get the back bottom the first time, you can always, unbend it and do it again. But there it is. See it dead on, you see no seams. Top, you see no seams. Back, it's hard to see it until you get to the bottom. There's my 2 coils. Let's take a close-up look at them. And there they are. .24 gauge, 38 gauge, and .3 ribbon. Hybrid coils. Looking awesome. I love me some hybrid coils. I could also did something like put the ribbon on the sides and put the 38 in the middle. Or I could have did alien instead of the ribbon, or alien instead of 38, or twisted 40 gauge instead of either of them. You could do so many things. You could have did 38 ribbon alien. You could have 3 different in there. Just get your measurements and you could have a lot of fun with these. Alright, so I'm going to look at the top. You see nothing. Top, nothing. Front, nothing. Go towards the back. Still nothing until you go towards the bottom there. That one I still can't see it. And that's pretty much how you do a hybrid coil. Let's install them and check out the ohms. Alright, first RDA I found that was empty was a dead rabbit deck. So I'm going to install this dead rabbit. So what I like to do with my coils is I like to get them on my 3mm bit on the Coil Master jig. And I actually like to use the jig as a guide. So I'm going to put my close cutters up against the jig there. And then I'm going to angle it down a little bit to give it a little more. And cut. I'm going to flip this around, use the Coil Master jig as a guide, up against that, angle it down a bit, and cut. Let's do it again. Take this coil on the 3mm Coil Master jig, use it as a guide, push it up against there, angle it to make it a little bit bigger, and cut, and flip it. Push, angle, cut. Alright. Now we can install. Get my dead rabbit. Positive, negative. Positive, negative. Push down. Lift it up a little bit so it's not touching the posts. Flathead. Tighten the leads. Straighten it out a little bit. Get the other coil. Around. Lift it up just a little bit. Tighten. Tighten. Lift it up and straighten. Straighten both out. They're looking pretty nice in there. RDA needs a little bath, but so do the coils. Alright, let's get these on something I could read. Alright, I gave it a bath, put it on a DNA. Changed the lighting, and they're looking awesome. Let's color them up and check the ohms. So I'm going to keep it at 16 watts. They're starting off at 0.8. Once again, 24 gauge cores. 0.3 Canthal ribbon, 38 gauge nichrome wrap. The cores are also nichrome. So I'm just going to give it a couple pulses. You see the steam coming off from the bath I just gave it. A couple pulses, a couple wiggles and straighten out. I don't like to pinch it just yet. Alright, so it finishes up at a 0.13, which I knew that already. I actually make these same exact coils and sell them as pre-made coils. Same exact ones I did today. If you're interested, you can always hit me up on Instagram. But I'm going to leave these colored like this because I think they just look cool like that, and I know that the ohms are not going to change after this. So, looking good. Obviously, the ribbons can fall, so it didn't change colors like the nichrome did, but that makes it look very cool. So, let me get out to FaceTime, wrap up this video, and we'll get out of here. Now, these coils in particular are a great vape. That's why I sell them, because they look cool and they vape good, especially on a regulated device. I really like them. I actually have them in one of my devices right now, and I just really do like how they vape, but all in all, they're just really fun to make. They're also very good, so let's say you're building a coil and you keep getting 2 inches clean and then you mess up like an alien. You know, you just did 2 inches and all of a sudden it wraps over itself. You could cut that out and put in something else and make hybrids with your mistakes. So that's another thing that's really cool about hybrids. You don't necessarily have to do it like this. You could have a mistake in one of your wires and you don't feel like unwrapping it or trashing it, and you could make a hybrid out of that with just the measurements. So that's another thing you could do cool with the coils. Other than that, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. This is going to be one of the last pre-recorded videos with this type of camera. So I'm getting better cameras. Hopefully everything goes up. Once again, I'm Nick Devine. This is N.devine83, pre-recorded. And I do run live coil building shows here on YouTube every other Tuesday and Sunday. Alternating Tuesdays, I do pre-recorded videos like this one. And on the live Tuesdays, I'll do like a device or an RDA along with my build. 99% of my shows are coil building based, and my live shows run from 2 to 3 hours. I just did one for like 4.5 hours last night. I have organized playlists. I run giveaways, build-offs. Just please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, comment, and hopefully you learned something. But you had fun though. Other than that, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.